All right, so we are going to get started. If you haven't done so already, please enter your name, your email, your contract number, and your contract name into the chat feature. I see there's quite a few in there already. This just kind of helps us keep track of who is here. We will send out, of course, we'll send out the recording of this and all the questions that you have. I do have you all muted. I know there's going to be questions. We do have a section at the end for that. We will spend, a good amount of time answering any questions that are needed. But please just enter those into the chat box. Feel free to do it as they come up. But again, we will have time at the end specifically for questions and answers. All right. Let's just kind of go over some housekeeping stuff. Who's in the bureau, who is who. Linda Dara is currently our manager. Sophia and Kathleen, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Sophia is Empire After School Program Supervisor, and Kathleen is our Advantage Supervisor. These are the program managers. We are currently fully staffed, and contractors will be notified if there is any changes to the program manager that is assigned to your contract. I think as of right now, most of us are pretty set, maybe a few minor changes here and there. If you're not certain who your contract manager is, feel free to reach out, and we will make sure you know who that is. This is also really important too when it comes to claiming and reporting documents, to work directly with your program manager, as we all kind of have a little bit different of a process. All right, so what we kind of are discussing today, again, this is going to be an overview, a lot of new faces on our side, as well as I think some new individuals on the vendor contractor side. We've noticed there's been quite a few new emails that come through us that we're reaching out to as well. I'm gonna do some tips and tricks for best practice. These are kind of, just I'm lucky in the fact that I have after school program direction experience, so I like to share this information with you all because I'm finally on this side to try and make things a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, more streamlined. And then we also have the expectations. Tips and tricks are going to be what makes it easier for you. The expectations are going to be what we want to see on our side. And we'll have some examples. We'll go over the forms, the document completion. Some of them are self-explanatory. Some of them can be a little bit confusing because we have them locked. We'll kind of go over that as well. We'll go over the current and updated documents, and again, we'll have the question and answer section. All right, so some best practices. If you can, I would love for you to put in the chat how you typically document any of the above mentioned. If you document success stories, how do you do that? How do you document your attendance, your dates and times, your family events? What do you use? Do you document program details or daily notes? I'll give about a minute or so to add those in. We will be sending out the slide. Yep. Oh, great. We have some answers coming in. So daily notes, monthly reports, highlights and save the dates, sign in, sign out sheets. Great. Those are perfect examples. And the reason why we would consider these best practices are because we use these to continuously advocate for funding for the after-school programs, for youth development programming. We also use a lot of these program reports to monitor the sites, as I'm sure as expected. The more detail and the more information you give us, the better we can to assist you in any barriers there may be, but we can also use all of your successes and achievements to push this constant programming forward. So again, Databases, paper copies, Excel sheets, Google Share, when you're using those for attendance sheets, they really should be tangible and not estimated. I'm sure many of you know that, many of you do that, especially if you have a SAC license already. That's one of the things that you have to do. Family events should have sign in and sign out sheets. That helps us kind of calculate the hours that families are present, how many families are present, etc. And there should be notes minimally taken weekly. I know sometimes this can be difficult because it's constant in and out a lot of times throughout the week of students. But this also helps to note those barriers and those successes. Again, what I mentioned before, we use the NLD barriers that you share with us to help you make your program more successful, and then we take the successes to continuously advocate for this kind of funding. And this will also help to prepare a detailed work plan activities description and share those needs with us. And like I said, they can be as simple as adding a notes section at the bottom of the attendance tracking document. And I'm going to share just like a really brief sample of something that could be used. Again, this is not something you necessarily have to do, but it would be something that would help keep you from having to kind of remember everything. You can document these, you can file these, and when it comes to, 3 months later when we're expecting those reports, you have everything done. Have a section where you can document performance measures, notable performance measures. Every contract has a minimum of 3 performance measures that we do require you to report on quarterly. So having a section in your attendance or having a spreadsheet like this to document that may also help with those tangible reports, those tangible numbers that we like to see. And again, the attendance, the notes can be quickly accessed and documented for reference and review for quarterly reporting. And the weekly accomplishments and the weekly barriers. Again, I really stress those. I know that's probably hasn't been the most common thing, but when we see those accomplishments and those barriers, it really helps us as program managers to help your programs be successful as possible and make sure that the needs of the youth involved are being met and making sure the goals and the targets of this funding is also being met. All right, so again, that last section was just kind of like a quick tips and tricks, just to kind of keep everything rolling from month to month, week to week, to make sure that when you're reporting on the actual events and the tangible events. And these are our expectations. In your work plan, we want to see the actual accomplishments, and this column should not just be copied and pasted from the planned activities. And Mark is going to take over after this section and show you a little bit, but there's the 4 sections of the program reporting document. The first 2 sections, obviously your planned activity and the frequency of the activity, that's going to should be a mirrored image of your contract, your original contract documents. It's the second 2 columns, which is the actual complements and the dates delivered. They should not just be copied and pasted, right? We want to see what that actual activity was, how it was performed, and then a brief detail of maybe what the youth got out of it. And then the last section of the actual dates. They should be accurate and corresponding, dates and ranges, not just copying and pasting quarterly, daily, weekly, etc. I know with the daily, it is really difficult to put all of those days. If you did something 5 days a week for, the 12 weeks in the reporting period, that obviously is work with your program manager to kind of get those dates accurate. So if there's questions that we don't have to constantly go back and ask, but we can at least see that. If you're doing it quarterly, put the date that the event happened. If you did it, if it was a weekly thing, or if you only did it like 2 or 3 weeks throughout the quarter, just put the date of those weeks. And again, we'll have time for questions at the end if that's a little confusing. Performance targets, they really, really should include a narrative of success, and we'll go over that as well. We'll go over examples. The bottom section of that you'll see on the program reporting does allow for paragraphs, sentences, any type of description that we need. And this is really important because those performance targets are kind of what help us to understand that you are doing what the idea of the program is, what you agreed to do in your original contract. Have any description of activities performed that you'd use to meet the target, not just the blanket name of the activity, but what the actual activity was. And an explanation of why something is not measured yet. I know we do run into a lot of, if you're depending on the school district to share information with you, sometimes they haven't passed that on yet, or if there hasn't been enough time to actually document any changes, we understand that. Give us an explanation why. If it has to do with the school not sharing that, remember that you put that they agreed to be your partner in the beginning of this contract period, and use that. You should exercise your partnership agreements, and that if they agreed to give you that information, you really should be able to access that and provide the information to us. And the quarterly attendance form should be actual data that has backup. Again, we talked about the attendance sheets. Those are really important. So ones that you keep track of and ones that we utilize. Our attendance sheets probably aren't going to be the best for your tracking purposes because it's just a simple number in a date. But we may ask for tangible data of how did you come to this number, and you should not just be copying and pasted from the anticipated column. It should be the actual number of youth that attended the program on that day. Just a few other notes. For Empire, they require separate quarterly reports for each school level involved. So site separation is not necessary as long as it aligns with the approved contract ages. So you may have, an elementary, middle, and a high school. Each one of those should have their own separate report. So again, it's based on ages, based on school level. All right, so there's kind of a lot going on here. This is just kind of an example of what we would say is a above average program report, but this is truly what we should be seeing on every program report. The downside, our program reporting documents are sometimes a little difficult to navigate, so we suggest numbering everything along the columns. So you can see here, seasonal activities are 1, that's our planned activity. So when we go to review this, we are going to correlate every number 1 along the way. It was ongoing. We have that, and we also have all of the dates that it had happened. And of course, these are seasonal activities, monthly themes, focusing on cultural awareness and celebrating diversity for this individual program. And over on the side, it may be difficult to read, but the contractor goes into a lot more detail and actually says what each month activity was, what each theme was, and then they kind of explain how they use that. Just for an example, youth were able to express their own feelings through the work of art using their pictures as well. Since it's cold outdoors, children have been staying active indoors, playing many organized and recreation sports activities. Some of them are obstacle courses, steal the bacon, soccer, tennis, badminton, basketball, musical hula hoops, etc. So they go on to kind of give that extra detail that we're looking for, right? We see the performance targets, but we want to know if the performance targets were met, what was the success? What was the factor that led to that? And that's kind of what these reports do for us. Again, if you go all the way across, you see 2, 2, 2, 2. We can follow it. 3, 3, 3. And this was great because we kind of had a little bit of example of how to provide those dates, and 3 ongoing. And they just put the dates from February 1st to December 1st to February 28th. And I didn't blow this example up, but it does kind of discuss, they pulled out some really important factors from each one. And then they also told what time of the year they did those and that kind of stuff. So details are really important in this section. We don't just want what you see here. Oops. Seasonal activities and monthly themes focusing on cultural awareness and celebrating diversity. We don't want that copied and pasted 2 columns over. Those should be different. This should be planned, and this should be the actual activity description. All right, so this is an ideal performance target reporting. I know sometimes it can be a little bit difficult when we're trying to pick apart the performance targets and how exactly they are going to be measured within your program. This program report example has a really great baseline. They not only do they use a whole number, they also toss in a percentage in there, which is nice in case your numbers are changing throughout. You still kind of have that percentage to fall back on, that percentage to give us some sort of tangible reporting. And they give the measure, again, is they have a way for us to break it down to understand how they're going to be measured. Will attend Advantage after school program at least 3 times a week? How many? At least 9, or 25% of the individuals who are enrolled. So this first section, typically going to be what you put in your contract documents. It's going to be it's going to mirror that because these are going to say the same. The next slide, which is the narrative section, the results section of the program reporting, is where we want to see that evidence that those performance targets are being met or they are not being met, and why. Very simple. Was the target met? Yes or no? Identify the number. This stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Everybody does a great job with this. This bottom section, results show, when we have results like this, it shows the accountability of the vendor by describing the breakdown for this instance, of attendance and how that attendance target was met. It gives us numerical data to fall on. In September, there was 14 of the 25 youth that attended 3 times per week. So that's the target. It's great. We can see that it's over the 25%. It is actually 15%. Or 56%, I'm sorry, and then so on from October and November. The bottom section is this additional information. We don't always need that, but it is nice to see. Especially then that gives us, if we have questions or if we want to utilize your program for advocacy, we have that information as well. And again, the verification is described and the actual data was provided to us to supplement. The attendance data will be analyzed for all youth attending, and they displayed the data above. This goes back to the many reports are submitted with just school report cards and no data showing performance. So we would see just that, yes, it was met, this so many kids met it, and we don't necessarily have any data to make that accountable. We don't know if it's just being pulled out of the air. There's nothing that we can compare it to. And again, I say exercise your partnerships, because when you applied for these contracts, when you were approved for these contracts, you had that partnership with the school. All right. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of the forms, and then I'm going to toss it on over to Mark. All of these forms that we should see with every quarter report, we need the program report forms. In that, program activity section and performance target. Quarterly attendance, those are the anticipated days, the actual days, and make sure the proper headings and proper format for saving. We'll go over that. And the AP in the ABE, there's pre-filled values, there's fillable values, and each column kind of has an equation. So it's really important to make sure you're following the directions on those, and then how and when to claim. So Mark, if you need me to stop sharing so you can grab a hold, I will do that.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mark Roberts, OCFS. I am going to go through all the documents that Abby just talked about and just look at some tips for them and how to complete them. I guess we'll start with the program report. So there is an Advantage program report and there is an Empire program report. The easiest way to know which is right at the top, but just the main difference between them is the headings in the activity section. You can see Advantage headings are based on your quarterly work plan from your contract documents. So each of these correspond to that quarterly work plan. In the Empire, the Empire is a different type of quarterly work plan, and these are the headings from that document. So the headings in the activity section are a little different. The performance targets are all going to look the same between Empire and Advantage. You see the Advantage one is a bit longer as well. And then at the end of the performance targets, there's the parent engagement section, and that's also true for Empire. So when you're filling out your program report, this is the name of your agency. If you're doing an Advantage, if you're an Advantage contract, you're doing one of these per site. If you're doing an Empire, You may probably doing one per school level. So you can list multiple sites here. And then you'll check, this is our elementary program report. Your contract number, maximum anticipated daily attendance for an Advantage contract, that's for the site. So you may have a contract for 140 youth. That would be $280,000 per year. If you have 2 sites and each one is set to serve 70 youth, then you would put 70 for site 1. And when you're creating the other program report for site 2, you put 70 there. Empire is a bit different. If you have a contract to serve 100 youth at 2 sites, and they are all elementary school youth, you would be doing one program report. You'll have both sites on it, and you can combine the MATA here. The contract reporting year, you're going to put like that. Then you're going to select the quarter. And just like Abby was explaining, what comes under planned activity and frequency of activity is going to come out of your contract documents. So your quarterly work plan had a table that looked a lot like this, and it described what you were planning to do and how often you're planning to do it. And that's coming right out of those documents. That's the copy and paste columns. Where we don't want to see copy and pasting is in the actual accomplishment and the dates delivered. One of the tips here that Abby suggested was to number things, because maybe your planned activity is very simple. Maybe your frequency of activity is very simple. But maybe you start writing your narrative about what music class actually did, right? And maybe that narrative goes on for a while. You got a nice big old narrative for that, right? You know, what I often see is folks want to try and line these up so it reads across like 111, and then like if I put 2 here, they would want to line them up again. That's impossible to do in this column if you write a lot, right? So that's why we recommend you number them, because then even though it doesn't read across horizontally anymore, we can still follow it when we're reviewing them. We'll say, 2, 2, okay, this is all 1. Here's 2. The column will automatically shrink itself as you add more text. So it does become a little difficult to read at a point. But that's still readable. That's still acceptable to me if I were reviewing it. That'll show up in CMS just fine. And again, same for the dates delivered. You know, if this was done twice weekly, we want to know kind of what the actual dates are. And for activities that are really regularly occurring, it makes more sense to, you could say, you know, maybe program started on the 15th and the first day you did music was the 17th. And the end of the first quarter is November 30th. So let's say, you know, you did it twice weekly through 24th, and maybe you took a break and you started up again like that, something like that, for like a regularly occurring, because otherwise you're going to be listing like 917, 919, you know, 924, 926. I don't think that's entirely necessary for something that's like this, but for something like, let's say youth council, and let's say in your program plan, you said you're going to do youth council twice quarterly, then it makes sense in a quality report, we're going to want to see what were those dates, right? October 12th and November 27th or something like that. When you get to the performance targets, this heading information will carry over from the first page, as will the checkboxes. So I just checked it on the first page and there it is here. The baseline and the measure are going to come straight out of your contract. Both Empire and Advantage have identical performance targets in their contract documents. So that's where they're being copy and pasted from. And then results. This is where we want you to put information about what actually happened. So these are the three kind of minimum questions that we want to see answered. Right? Was the target met? Simple yes or no. And then, if how many children achieved the academic goal that you set. And then this is kind of where it would be ideal to include a narrative of success, right? What factors contributed to meeting the target or not meeting the target? So, maybe you did some test prep, you know, for students. And because of that test prep, you think they did better on the test. Maybe you want to talk about what was that? How often did you have a particular student that was really struggling in math? Maybe you have an individual story of a student that succeeded where they haven't before. Success is subjective, of course, right? If you have a student who is consistently getting Fs in math and they get a D plus on a math test, that's a success. That student showed improvement, right? That might be huge for them. And that's the kind of thing that we would want to see here is that you worked with this student to identify what their issues are and saw some success from it. So that's where I would put that narrative. Or data. We've seen one of the examples Abby gave, they listed some academic data. You can do that by month. You can do that by just in general for the quarter. What was your baseline? How did you measure it? What did you achieve? And like Abby was saying, the schools signed these partnership agreements as well to provide access to data to help you fill out these performance targets. I have in the past, I can't really write letters to the school district to tell them like, hey, share your data, please. But I can write a letter to you as the direct contract holder to say, you know, you are in partnership agreement with the school. These program reports are a required element of remaining in compliance with your contract, and we would like to see you have access to this data, right? Or if it's just not working out, if you just can't get a hold of this data, we don't the thing we really don't want to see is was the target met, NA, how many students who met this target, NA, and then the explanation is tests aren't taken until quarter four. Because we'll see that for all three first quarters. Anything that you can provide here is better than this, right? If your baseline is about the state tests and your measure is that more students will pass the state English exam in fifth grade, sixth grade, whatever it is, you can still put some kind of narrative of success down here about what was done to prepare them for the state test, right? Can you speak with teachers at the school and get a sense of what students are in need, right? Maybe it's not even a measure of numbers, but maybe we had a teacher program conference and identified 30 students in particular need of math tutoring, and then these students received specialized tutoring during program hours, such as et cetera, et cetera. That's an area of success, right? Maybe we can't directly answer the baseline, but we can still provide examples of what you're doing to help meet it. I find that performance target 2 is easier for programs because they often take their own attendance. So providing a narrative of success and providing information here in my experience is not a problem for many of our vendors. Parent guardian involvement, things are starting to open up again, thankfully after COVID. Of course, every school district is a little bit different, but it may be the case for your district that this is similar to Target One, where you're just not able to engage with the parents in a way that you would like. Like maybe I think everybody has a vision of a parent engagement event as like a banquet or a student performance where parents will come and sign in, and you can say we had 50 parents show up for a 1 hour event. That's 50 parent hours. Um, that might not be possible where you are. And if it's not possible, again, the thing we don't want to see is this, you know, um, uh, to see at the school district. Something is better than this. Anything is better than this. And I know that the contracts, the vendors that I work with and visit and speak with are doing a lot of things to engage with the parents and the guardians and the community, right? Um, and that's the kind of stuff that we want to see here because I know it's happening because I speak with you folks directly, but folks above me, management, state chamber, doesn't unless it's on paper. They don't know, and we want them to know. I want them to know what you folks are doing. So I just visited a program. Um, I just visited a program yesterday who did a food and clothing drive. And they're not funded to I don't think we fund that particular event, but it's something that their agency does to engage with the school community as part of their other outreach. A lot of our agencies are involved in multiple service areas, right? You're after school folks. A lot of you are also mental health folks, um, food and clothing folks. You do a lot for your communities. And if you're doing things for the school community, that is a way that you're engaging with that community. That's a way that parents are getting to know you. That's a way that you're being able to talk to your parents um, and get to know what's going on in your community. So that's the kind of stuff that I would add here. Even if you can't, if you say you're going to throw 3 student, I don't know. If your goal is to have 50 parents attend a parent um, program steering committee once per quarter. If this doesn't happen, maybe the steering committee doesn't get off the ground, maybe parents don't seem to be interested in it. Think about what was the goal of your measure. If you're having parents attend a parent steering committee, that sounds to me like you want to get input from parents about what's important to them, about what's happening at program, and what you want them to be providing feedback. So maybe there's another way that you did that. I know for a lot of programs, um, the daily pickup time communication or whatever you might call it is an essential part of interacting with parents. Parents are coming from work, they want to pick up their kids and go home and cook dinner. And they still have a lot of things to do that evening. They're not always available to be engaged in this ideal way that maybe your targets originally formulated. But they are there to pick up their kids usually every day. Um, so for this, again, we want the details on this too. Like Abby was saying, this is not really a narrative of success. If you say, yeah, we met our target, um, we on average interact with 60 parents at pickup time. And then saying this, in our expectation, this is not sufficient. We expect more. We expect what happens at daily pickup time. I was visiting a site in Long Island where a child was picked up and the youth worker came to talk with the parent and said, "Hey, buddy, you were hitting little Jane earlier. I heard that we're not supposed to be hitting people, right? Right?" And the parent said, "Oh, he's been doing that for weeks. You were doing that again?" And they had a nice conversation. They weren't like interrogating the kid, but that's like letting the parent know in a way what's happening with their kid. What did little Joey do today? Right? Oh, he had a little issue, but we worked through it, right? And that shows the parent, you know, the program is aware of what little Joey's issues are, right? And the parent knows that it's that's communication. That's the kind of communication that our Advantage and Empire programs are developed to foster. Um, or you know, Joey did an amazing art presentation today. So if you have a particular story, that's what we love. That's what makes the most. I think that's what makes the most impact on folks higher up than us. When I take this to I pass this up the chain to chamber or something. If they can read a story about a child who did something amazing, and you were able to share that with the parent at pickup time, and witness witness a hug, right? A child being hugged by their parent. Oh, you did such a good job. I'm so proud of you. Like that might sound small to to a layman, but like that's the kind of stuff that we want to see, you know. Um, what would that look like? Yeah, good question. So you might have something general at first. Group leaders engage with parents every day at pickup time around 5:30 p.m. What do they share? Group leaders are able to share what parents, child did that day, providing updates on behavior issues, accomplishments, etc. And then, so that's a very general start. Now let's get specific. We will be holding a canned food drive. You know, a lot of programs do Thanksgiving events. We will be holding a Thanksgiving dinner for program families on 11/23/22 during pickup time in Q1. Group leaders invited parents to this event and reminded them about it. Parents were assured that there is no cost, or maybe there is a cost, so they were reminded what it is. Maybe they were provided financial assistance. You know, maybe it's like a $10 dinner per family, and maybe a family says, "Oh, we can't afford that." So maybe your group leaders were able to say, like, "Oh, well, you know, our agency does financial assistance for, you know, let me get you a scholarship application, and we'll see if we can get you to that dinner." Um, that's a great thing to provide. Maybe and then just like any story, even if it seems small to you at the time, something that sticks out in your mind. Um, one student, I'm not sure the best way to phrase this. You folks are better writers than I am. Um, one student shows a great interest in art. Our program was able to um, get them on a school mural creating team in Q1. They will be creating a mural at the entrance of the school. During pickup time, we shared this with their parent, and shared this with their parent. Um, Shared how proud they were of their child and made time to attend the mural unveiling. Um, these are the types of quality interactions between staff, students, parents that our program seeks to foster. That's to me, that's something I would go, oh wow, that's awesome. I mean, I just wrote it, so it sounds a little arrogant, but I'm sure you folks will produce things that are much better. I've witnessed things like this in my visits, so I know they're happening. And to be able to pass this up to my supervisors I'd love to do that. Okay, I'm sorry, we've gone on a little long on the program report. The parent engagement hours. This is a simple calculating field. So the details might be up here for your parent engagement. And then this is more about like on 11/23, Thanksgiving dinner. We had like 50 parents. It was like a 2-hour event. It's going to automatically calculate your parent engagement event hours. If you run out of room here, let your program manager know. Um, we can try and isolate this and send you like an extension for it. Okay, quarterly attendance. Quarterly attendance form. I want to point out one thing. We have a special version just for the current year, 2023 to 2024. If you don't have one yet, let your program manager know, and they can send it to you. I want to point out that when you initially open our blank template, this is what you might see. We're on Q4, and you don't see Q3, Q1, or Q2, right? Where'd they go? For some reason, the template is hiding them. So if you go down here in the bottom left and click these arrows, it will reveal them. Here they are. I forgot to mention with the program report, your program manager may pre-fill some of the easy to copy and paste sections. You know, the activities, the planned activity that comes out of your contract. Your program manager may fill that for you. And for your quarterly attendance form, your program manager might also pre-fill the top areas for you. I'm going to show you how to do all of them just so you know, so that if your program manager is out for some reason and you have a blank template, you don't have to wait. So up here is where you'll put your name. So this says school/CBO name. This is the contract holder name. So if you are Schenectady School District and you hold the contract for this Empire program, that's what you're going to put here, right? Or if you're ABC After School and you are the contract holder for this Advantage program, you're going to put your name here, your agency name, your contract number here, and then the site name. So this is where you'll put like PS18, the school level. Attendance tracks is going to be tracked separately by site and school level. So if at PS18 you serve elementary and middle school, you're going to have one section for PS18 elementary, and then scroll down, and you're going to have another section for PS18 middle school, right? These numbers come out of your contract. In Advantage, they come out of your quarterly work plan. And in Empire, they come out of your youth attendance pages. Your program manager might help you with those as well. The site MATA. Again, keep in mind that your contract is funded for a certain MATA, maximum anticipated daily attendance, but each site may have a component of that. So if you're an Advantage program that's funded for 280,000 per year, that means your contract MATA is 140 kids. And if you have two sites, you may have split that 140. So maybe you have 80 at one site and 60 at another. Your contract may not specify what the separate elementary versus middle school MATAs are for the same site. So if you're funded for 140 kids and you have one site, I would repeat it here, 140, 140, and then the distinction is being made here about what school level they are. And then we need you to report on actual attendance. Abby was able to show you folks some good examples of what you might want to use internally. I've seen a lot of programs use very detailed, exceptionally organized attendance trackers for their own purposes. Unfortunately, I know it's a pain, but our claims require this document. So you will kind of have to translate what you use internally to this. So what we want here is at PS18, how many elementary students attended program on September 4th, 2023? And then how many middle school students attended that same day is going to go on the next chart. I've seen it happen, so I just want to say it here. I've seen folks try to fill this out by taking an average of the week. So they will say like, we had like about 50 kids a day for this week. So I'm just going to put 50, 50, 50, 50. That's not what we want to see. And to us at OCFS, this raises a red flag. It's rare in my experience for attendance to be that consistent. Um, I mean, I've honestly seen this before from some vendors, you know, and then they'll do like, it looks weird. Um, your program manager is going to ask about it if they see it. Maybe it's the case. You know, I'm not saying it's not possible, but that's why you want to keep your internal backups. Your program manager might reach out to you and say like, this is a little more consistent than I'm used to. Can I see your actual attendance forms? And we'll check it. But what we want to see here is not averages. What we want to see here are actuals. You know, even if it's like, this is usually what I would expect for if you have 50 per day on average. That's kind of what it usually looks like for most programs I deal with. Um, okay, I'm getting the old, I think I've gone through enough. I'm sorry for taking up everybody's time. We have another webinar on Friday, which is going to be specifically about claim documents. And during that, we will review the annual breakdown and your budget and how they relate. So I hope to see you all Friday. I hope that this was helpful, and I'm going to turn it back over to Abby.
All right, thank you, Mark. We're just going to use the last 15 minutes here or so to answer questions. So what we can do here, I can unmute you if you raise your hand. It's just a little bit difficult to follow that, or if you place all of your questions directly in the chat box, we can kind of answer them. Also, we can document them, which is really nice. It helps us to know what kind of questions you guys have so that we can make sure we address them in the future. So let's see what we have. And again, if you don't have any questions or anything yet, feel free to sign off. Like I said, we're just going to spend the last 10 minutes here or so answering questions.
The only things that came up so far, Abby, is the slide deck available, or will we be sending the presentation? So
Yes, we will
yeah.
send this whole presentation, the recording, the questions, everything.
And then I don't know that it was asked, but Matthew offered that we don't have any updated information about the RFP at this time. When there is, it'll be announced. And then someone asked about attendance forms, if they should reach out to their program manager. Yes, your program manager should be sending you the current year. So we have the 22, 23, 23, 24. Lorraine, how would you confirm who your program manager is? What is your contract number, Lorraine?
Hmm. What is the due date of invoice submission? Claims should be in by 12:30, as well as reporting documents. For expenses, what documents are needed? How do you expect inspiration? For expenses, we need the ABE. We only require the ABE, but be sure to maintain any documentation for your records in case you are audited or asked for any more details.
Yeah, that's right. We don't request, currently we're not requesting like payroll registers or receipts or anything of that nature for claiming. But if the state comptroller requests them, they give us 48 hours notice. And then if they don't get it, they reject the claim.
One thing I did fail to mention, I apologize, is some of us program managers do things a little bit differently. Definitely reach out to your program manager and see if they prefer you to do revisions via email versus through CMS. CMS can be a little wonky, so if there's a slight number off or a slight change, we generally have to reject the whole thing and start over. So sending an ABE and sending a program report through email, some program managers, most program managers actually do that and then give you the go-ahead to go ahead and log into CMS. ABE is the annual breakdown of expenses. So sorry for not putting that out. Your program manager should send you one at the beginning of your contract approval, and they'll also send it along with at your request at any time. Kira, I may have to go back and look. Are you referring to the email that said the submission date was 4/30? It's generally going to be about a month to 30 days after the last day of the quarter, if that helps. Christine, do you have any specific guidelines for how to handle reporting when a program receives funding from an additional funding source? Quite honestly, my outlook on that is our funding is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be supplemental. We do expect you to have other funding sources. You would report on that as program happened. When it comes to program reporting, we want to see how our funding helped these programs be successful. We don't necessarily need a monetary breakdown when it comes to program reporting. It's strictly just claiming we need a monetary breakdown, and that's where it should match the funding you were awarded. Again, Q3, I'm going to assume that's 6/30. Is it supposed to be not 4/30? You're given about a month to 30 days after the end of the quarter to provide your reports and claims.
Yeah, we can look at the, thanks, Ava. We'll look at the slide just to make sure we have that correct. There's a question about submitting all 4 quarters at once. The quarters are need to be, so here's the thing. Per the contract language, the claims are to be submitted 30 days after the end of the quarter. Obviously, with amendments during the 22-23 contract year, vendors weren't able to claim during that period until the amendment was completed. So the claims need to be submitted. Those claims can be submitted. I would encourage you to work with your program manager because we need to get the claims in order, first Q1 and Q2, Q3, Q4. My advice is to work with your program manager just to make sure that claim 1 is being submitted properly, because if there's an error there's an error in some of the documentation across all 4 quarters, we're going to just be pushing it all back to you. So work with your program manager and have the claims submitted. But as for this year, for the 23-24 contract year, the claims need to be submitted at the end of the closure of a quarter. The reason for this is we've been having challenges with the delays. Some of the delays were certainly implemented by the state because of these amendments, but we're getting requests from other state agencies. It looks like we're not using the after school money. So that's not a good reflection on our program. The other challenge we've had with these contracts, and this has been since I came on board in 2019, we have vendors who are years behind. It's not acceptable. And the state hasn't done us any justice in that area because we're doing these amendments. So when we get these amendments done, we need to get them caught up, but we need to get these claims done. It really impacts the program's operations because you're getting your money late. It impacts our staff's scheduling. They're trying to schedule site visits and such, and it's hard for them to be doing these things if somebody's dumping the 3 contracts on them with a year's worth of claims for each contract. So the claims really need to be submitted in a timely manner, and we're really pushing for that for this year.
Susan Farrell asked, will payment be more timely? We did not receive any Advantage funding last year until the school year was almost over. What I can say to that briefly is we're coming out of a lengthy amendment process. So that may be one reason that last year's claims, which was September 2022 to August 2023, may not have been paid out to you until August or September of 2023. If the amendment was taking a long time, we still can't process any claims for reimbursement until your contract is amended to be a budget-based reimbursement model for the 22 to 24 years. However, in an ideal situation where your amendment is approved and you have already claimed last year and been paid for last year, and you're going to submit Q1 like this month, because it just ended on November 30th. If you send the annual breakdown and program reports and quarterly attendance to me, and I review them and they look good, and I set the claim up in CMS, and you're able to process the claim in CMS with your con user and claim sig, it goes to an additional internal review stage at OCFS, and then it goes to the state comptroller for payment. And that process, in my experience, I cannot provide any concrete numbers on this because the state can change at any time, right? But in my experience, that takes 5 to 10 business days. It's been nice lately. With the holidays, you might extend that a little bit, but that's my experience.
And just to circle back, Lorraine, that contract number is not an Advantage or Empire contract, so I'm not sure if you maybe have something else with OCFS, but the number you provided is not Advantage or Empire.
Scrolling back, Lorraine put, oh, she emailed to me privately, sorry. But yeah, the contract number is still looking off, but we've got the name. So we can look
Okay.
into that and how the program manager get in touch with you, Lorraine.
Yeah, I have her email and agency. I just didn't have a contract number. Other than that, I didn't have or see any other questions in the chat.
All right. So if you have any, burning last minute questions, now's your chance to kind of get them to us. If not, again, always reach out to your program manager via email or phone call. Email is always best practice just because, again, we have multiple contracts, so it helps us to kind of keep track of the answers and the questions in the contract that they're related to. And if there are no more questions, I will go ahead and stop the recording and end the presentation. And again, thank you all for attending, and we are looking forward to getting these reports and these claims in and getting everything back on track. Thank you and have a good day.
Hey, Abby?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to hang on, catch up with Lorraine. We've been private messaging.
Oh, okay.
Lorraine, I want to make sure that you signed your last name or you have your email address, because I have your first name and I figured out the agency from what you sent me. You told me what it was. I just need to get Lorraine's email.
I have it, Kathleen.
Okay. Oh, great. All right. Thank you. So Lorraine will be in touch.